Americans, you enslaved a population of people based on their physical appearance. The idea was these people, i.e. people of African ancestry, this population of human beings, were closer to apes and animals than they were to human beings. Was a very important thread in the ideology that justified slavery. It has to. It has to. You cannot enslave somebody if you don't dehumanize them. And the moment the Civil War is over and we pass the law that, like, okay, slaves are free, it doesn't make them free. They're only free if there are laws that actually allow them to do to exercise their freedom. Like, you're not free. The police, everything was rooted in white supremacy, largely even in the North. So you don't just what do you think black people are like, oh, damn, man, sorry about that. Oh, shit. Yeah, sorry about that. All those just all the horrible, horrible things y'all went through. Come on, give me a hug, man. We're all good. It's not going to happen. It never happens like that. How many times do you get in a heated argument with someone in your family or your friends or whatever, and as soon as it's over, you're just like, oh, okay, cool, man. Yeah, share the love. It's all good. No, maybe you do all right, good, man. Yeah, but it's still, when you're walking away, you're still like, yeah, but fuck you anyway, man. You're not. It's years. Okay, so we're still living in this space of what would be white supremacy. This is that word, and it's a hot button issue. So Fox News is gonna wait. Where am I? Am I on here? So Fox News, if you're gonna take this video, I just said white supremacy. Oh my God, an era of white supremacy. So there's the liberal, radical sociologist Sam Richards at it again, indoctrinizing his class with white supremacy. And I would say it's not all white supremacy, but white supremacy is a thread that's right in there. You just look at the history. Okay, so poverty rate, 1959, black people under the age of 18, 66% of black Americans under the age of 18 were living in what the federal government, whatever they defined it as, the poverty line. 66%. Oh man, my God. And 21% for white people under the age of 18. And now that just gives you a sense of oh, okay. I study modern day slavery. Okay, I can't go back into slavery in the U.S., but I do study modern day slavery. And I've been to sweatshop areas and other areas where slaves are basically working, and in mining and so on in South America. And I will tell you that I've never met a slave that was lazy, man. So we can't turn around and be like to this guy, oh, you should have just been harder working. It's like, this is the nature. You're hard working. You're work. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay. So he's like, oh, they're all living in poverty. Oh, they must be just sitting around doing nothing. Seriously? And see, somebody would say that who's never read the history of everything that happened between 1865, let's say in 1959 or 1960. But let's go to the next one. Median family income. So black median family income was, in 1959, was 55% of white families. Okay, then we have, we're in the middle of the civil rights movement. And, people are, there's people, MLK, it's not just MLK, we always say, oh, MLK. But it's like, there's a civil rights movement, it's like hundreds of thousands of human beings, and not just black people, right? And then, but in 1981, only 50% of white families. Wait, hang on. There's, 22 years here. What happened? What happened? Why are y'all so poor still? What happened? And this is the question we want to ask. I don't know. Do you have any thought? What questions come to mind? Why are black people still so poor? What would you be thinking?
My first question is the same thing. It's why? No,
hang on. Why? Right? Why? Got it. Do you have an answer for that?
I keep thinking about that first graph that we showed. So like it makes sense that if you start after, so like that red line I think was like it started at year 0 and it was like skyrocketed by the time the blue line had started. So that makes sense, like why it would be there. But that's if they're the exact same rate. And like you, when you were walking by, it's like, oh yeah, the white man just like doing his thing. Like I have no real rush. I'm living life. If like in this situation, black people then like, I mean, once everything like was fully finalized, which we said took like years and years and years, why was the rate still like the same? Like, why didn't the rate like skyrocket? That's my thought. Because like, and you just said that they have like, they have good work ethic. So like, what was still stopping like that just boom, then like the chugging along kind of thing?
Yeah, this is what's really important. You got to understand. There's no difference in work ethic by culture or race. Not in the United States. It's just not. It's not about that, right? So it's not about that, right? So there's something else, right? So but the question is, why hundreds and hundreds of books have been written to try to answer the question why. And not just books by, bleeding heart liberals who just want to show white people how evil they are, kind of stuff like that. Books of people who, are really kind of like me, just really want to understand what happened, like what went on. So that's it. So this is a really awesome question.
Like I had like an answer to the why. You can't expect it to happen overnight because clearly it was going on for years. So therefore, a 20-year difference is not going to change anything.
Yeah.
So
no, 20 years.
I mean,
this is the point.
These little time frames or whatever. It's not going to happen just because, hey, you said this. Is now that you can't change. Like now today, you're not changing no one's mindset. So therefore, that's what's keeping people down because of the mindset of the ones who created the rules and who created the laws and everything.
Yeah.
So therefore, just because someone said it doesn't mean it's going to happen overnight or it's going to happen automatically.
So like, for example, someone says, hey, we don't have slavery anymore. Like this particular population of people are no longer slaves, they're free. And so therefore, we're going to rebuild a new society, right? That's not going to happen overnight.
No.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is in many ways the entire point of today's class, because the idea is, wait, but it was over then. What's the problem now, right? Or we had the Civil Rights Movement. We signed the Civil Rights Act in 1968. Like, what about now? And so the idea is people nonetheless always have this sense that it should be happening. And the argument is kind of like, if we go back to the very first slide, that, well, it doesn't matter. Like, okay, we've changed it. Now we're going to let these other people start investing their $100 a month at year 60, but they're never going to catch up. Like, they can't. That's the nature of it. This is what makes, in some ways, it really egregious, is because you don't look back and think, oh, every black person was dirt poor, eating rats, and like, God, I don't know. Like, no. There was such a self-educated black schools. White people wouldn't build schools. Black people build schools. Black people built universities, black banks, black stores, black this, black that. It's like, so like, right? And so now, the median family income when two parents work, look, they're very similar, right? So black family income is 74% as large as white earnings. This should be black median family income, by the way. In 1981, it was 84% as large as white earnings. Meaning that when two people have viable jobs and they're working, things are going well. They're still behind white people, but your income, this isn't wealth, this is income. And so okay, so I just want to show you that. Okay, go to the next one. Black men, so in 1960, there were 5.6 million black men in the United States. 5.6 million. And then, throughout the 60s, we had the 50s, we had the 60s. In 1968, we signed civil rights legislation, and all sorts of things began happening. And now, in 1982, we have 10.7 million black men. But employed black men, so that, we have an increase of 5 million black men. But the employed black men between 1960 and 1982 didn't go up proportionately. So it's like, whoa, wait, Now you got to say, so do you have a question about that? That's a pretty revealing slide right there.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like why? Again, is the question why? Especially because like things like laws and stuff were like going away, and they were like, I don't know, that like what? That's really surprising because like it went from like, if you look at the percentages of it, 4.1 million to 5.1 million is a lot closer, and then 10.7 and 5.9 is like half. Like what?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
We do studies about people working and work ethic and so on and so forth, right? And in blame, and I want to say this right here. This is a really nice place to say this. A big question we have is blame, right? When something happens that's really bad in your life, who do you blame for it? Yeah, I mean, like, do you blame other people or do you blame yourself, right? And so we always want to know, like, okay, who's more likely to blame themselves? Who's more likely to blame other people, the system, this, that, the other thing, right? Like, who really is? Well, I can tell you, sociologists, we study this because we want to know, right? Like, so I want to know, like, white men, like, what do white men say? And upper middle class white men or poor white men, and Arabs, what do Arabs say? Or Khaliji Arabs versus North African Arabs, and what do white women say? And like, so we want to know, like, who do you blame? And the group that was most likely to blame themselves when things went wrong for them in the United States was black men. And so the idea is like, this is so ironic, right? Because white people, as a way for white people to, and I will say white, not just white people, because it's other people as well, right? But as a way for, including many black people, Africans, for example, right? Because Africans are, kind of often see African Americans as rather sketchy and so on. And so like, but people are this way, it's like you can justify certain things by just thinking that people are screwing up and they're blaming the system. And I was thinking like, well, yeah, but that's only because every time you put a mic in front of some black person and you bring them on some television show and we say like, hey, tell us about racism. Well, they're going to talk about racism. And so every time you hear a black person talking, on whatever media it is, they're talking about the thing that you're really asking them about, which would be like racism. Arabs, tell us about violence in the Arab community, right? Like, well, he's going to talk about violence in the Middle East. But what he's not going to talk about is all the nonviolence in the Middle East. You go all through the Middle East and there's no violence whatsoever. So like, what you don't get is like, let's say in the black community, the most conservative place in the United States, the most conservative space in the United States is an average black African-American church on a Sunday morning, where the sermon is so conservative and so like, don't blame me, don't blame the white man, don't blame the system, da 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 da. If you screw up, it's your fault. It's just, I've sat in black churches sometimes and going like, damn, that's like a little bit stretching responsibility there, isn't it, minister? It's like there is racism and there is discrimination and there is a system, but like, damn, the message is just like, boom, blame yourself. It's you. It's all about you. And so then, I remember digging into this and seeing all of this, like, yeah, black man, oh, God.